We're asking Wausau area Congressman and Republican Sean Duffy. Congressman, it's good to have you back on the program, and let's begin with that question. Do you think Congress will pass tax reform by the end of the year?
I do, because, Mike, and it's good to be back with you. This is a substantial tax cut for middle-income Americans, but not only that, getting our corporate tax reform done well so America can be competitive again in a world competitive environment is key. And we have businesses that leave our shores and go to other countries just because of taxes. Let's make sure those companies stay here and new ones start here so we can employ more of our families with better paying jobs. And that's what this is all about, is better opportunity and a better American dream for more Americans.
So you can assure middle-class residents in your district that this will be good for them and that this is not a tax package that will ultimately benefit the richest Americans.
So, Mike, a family of four that makes $59,000 will have a 75% reduction in the federal income tax that they pay. I mean, so this is big for them. But not only that, I mean, making sure we have a healthy business environment where a lot of our people work is incredibly important. And what I find unique is liberals who say, I want to actually raise taxes on high-income Americans. They play this economic warfare against the middle income and wealthy. When we say, okay, we'll oblige, we're not going to lower taxes for high-income Americans, and we're actually going to take away some of their loopholes, guess what they do, Mike? They complain. So when we've taken the mortgage interest deduction, you write off the interest on your mortgage. Right now you can write up an interest on a mortgage that's $1 million. We reduce it to $500,000. In my district, people don't have $500,000 homes. They don't have $800,000 homes, but it's the Democrats who say, oh my goodness, we should be able to write off the interest on $1 million home. And they're fighting to keep that exemption in the tax code because they really play to wealthy Americans.
Congressman, if for some reason you're not able to pass tax reform, I think you said a couple of weeks ago that you thought the Republican Party candidates in 2018 would get absolutely destroyed. Do you stand by that?
I do. Listen, if Americans are seeing, because of people like Tammy Baldwin and other Democrats, see our health care costs skyrocket. We're projected to have, I think, a 36% increase in health care costs in Wisconsin this year alone. If you don't fix that and you don't get tax reform, the Republicans will not have kept the promises that they made to their constituents. For my behalf, I've been fighting and voting on health care and on taxes. But for the party, I think it'll be tough.
How do you push back against the argument that we cannot be adding to the nation's debt? This, over 10 years, adds $1.5 trillion to the nation's debt. How, as a conservative, can you support something that would add that much to the nation's debt?
So, that's a great question, Mike. And so, first off, I care about the debt because we're $20+ trillion in debt, and there will be a day of reckoning for America if we don't fix this problem. But the fundamental question becomes, can you fix the debt by taxing people more? And I think the answer to that is no, because you don't bring in more revenue with more taxes. The way you bring in more revenue is you grow your economy. You've seen in the first 2 quarters of Donald Trump's presidency, we've seen 3% plus growth every quarter. Not only that, the Atlanta Fed came out yesterday and said we project this quarter to be a GDP growth of 4.5%. So when people are working more and making more money, they pay more into the federal coffers. And that's actually how you reduce your debt.
Historically speaking, though, tax cuts have not necessarily produced 3% growth. Would you agree with that?
No, I wouldn't. If you look at the Reagan tax cuts, you saw explosive growth after the Reagan tax cuts, and after JFK cut taxes in the 60s, again, explosive growth. Mike, letting people keep more of their money and spend their money instead of guys like me in Washington, they know how to spend their money better than Washington does, and they're more effective with it, and they invest it better, and that's where you get the growth. You don't get it from bureaucrats in Washington spending your cash.
Let me shift gears a little bit. Earlier in this week, I saw an interview with you. This was shortly after the indictments of the former Trump campaign chair, Paul Manafort, and his associate, Rick Gates, the perjury, the guilty plea from George Papadopoulos, the former national security advisor to the campaign. You had not really had a chance to look at the documents and to give this a lot of thought. So I'll ask you today, now that you've had a chance to digest this, what does it mean for the Donald Trump presidency?
I don't think much at all. So that you have his campaign manager who, before he met Donald Trump and ran the campaign, might have had some shady activity. that has no bearing on any Democrat allegation of collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians. Here's my assessment. If Donald Trump was colluding, I'm going to be the first one to come on your show and condemn it. But with Washington leaking like a sieve, I mean, we knew of the indictment on Friday when it was going to come out on Monday. This town leaks on everything, and there has not been one leak to make an allegation that Donald Trump colluded with Russians in the election. So I think this is a non-story that's trying to push a Democrat narrative, and I do think people are right when they say, look at the Democrats. I mean, Hillary Clinton is the one who ended up paying Fusion GPS along with the DNC that ended up paying Russians for dirt on Donald Trump. I mean, that was the collusion.
Senator Johnson here in Wisconsin says he thinks that Bob Mueller should resign. He said he's too closely tied to former Director Comey, to the FBI, that it's not necessary to have a special counsel at this point in the process. Do you think Bob Mueller should resign?
Listen, I have concerns in that he's hired a legal team that's full of Democrat contributors. I think there's a lot of lawyers in America who haven't given to Republicans or Democrats. They care about investigations and the law. That concerns me. Yeah, he has some ties to some who are key witnesses in these cases, but I think that would create a whole other set of problems. And so what my hope is that Mueller sticks to the Russia investigation, stay focused on that, bring out the facts and be fair, and frankly, I think he will be. And until I have evidence to the contrary, I think he should stay, because the consequences of that, of taking him out, I think are too great, and it advances the narrative even further, which is a bad idea for America and for President Trump. Let's get the facts. Let's end the investigation.
Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy, the Republican from Central Wisconsin. We appreciate your time today. Thanks very much for being with us.
Hey, thank you, Mike.